good evening again. For those that, if I have not met you, my name is Chris Kovac. I am one of the co-founders of the Kansas City AI Club. We really appreciate you coming out tonight. This is another sold-out event. And again, appreciate you spending your evening with us. I am fond of saying excited people do exciting things. And there's a lot of excitement in Kansas City, whether that's the World Cup, the Chiefs, the Royals, or the Kansas City AI Club. And the energy and innovation that I've witnessed in the last year and a half is really second to none, and it really fills up my tank. So thank you for coming out. It's just really, really cool to see how quickly and how amazingly large this group has gotten. So show of hands. Who here is their first AI Club meeting? Wow, that is awesome. Well, welcome again. Who here has been to more than one? All right, got a pretty good mix there. I also want to, because we're excited, I'd like to take a picture of the crowds so that we post on social media so people that can't make it tonight can see that we have nice, friendly, smiling faces in the audience, and we really are doing cool things, and people from every different background you can imagine. So if you could humor me on the count of three, we'll take a quick picture and then we'll move on to the rest of the evening. So, all right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Wait, come on, give me some looks. All right. So I want to give you a little bit of background about the Kansas City AI Club. We are an informal organization. We are all volunteers. And so what we're trying to do is just put together a venue so we can all come and talk about AI and help each other out. So I really appreciate all the steering committee. We have 10 people in total. So for those steering committee members, if you can raise your hand and let everyone know who you are. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to those folks at after the panel's over. I also want to say one other quick thing in comparing Kansas City to other markets. I've got a buddy that runs the generative AI group in Boston. He gets about 150 people. We sold 160 plus tickets tonight. In other words, we are at parity or better with peer cities, whether that's Cleveland, Cincinnati, Minneapolis, and so on. Kansas City is on fire, and it's because of you folks. And so let's keep it going. I'd also like to say thank you to Kevin McGinnis and the Keystone Innovation District for hosting, I think this is our 4th or 5th meetup here. I'd like to have Kevin come up and say a little bit about what they're doing here. Really cool organization. If you're not familiar, check it out.
Thanks, Chris. Welcome to Keystone Collab. I missed the show of hands, so I'm going to make you guys do it again. How many of you, this is your first time here at Keystone? Oh, wow. Fantastic. So I'm Kevin McGinnis, President and CEO of the Keystone Community Corporation. Welcome to Keystone Collab. This is the first phase of the Keystone Innovation District. Our goal is to take one of Kansas City's biggest problems, the fact that we don't have an identity in terms of what industry we serve. You can, depending on what room you're in, you can hear AEC is the top industry in Kansas City. You can hear digital media, you can hear biologics, you can hear transportation logistics, you can hear cybersecurity. Our goal is to create a place of convergence in Kansas City where startups can work with corporations, where industries can work horizontally with technologies like artificial intelligence. It requires a neighborhood. Most of our peer cities, I heard Chris alluding to peer cities, most of them already have a place like this. Most of them already have a place that's an economic catalyst for inclusive prosperity, for economic growth through industry, research commercialization, entrepreneurship. We're trying to create a density of entrepreneurship here in this neighborhood of hundreds of startups, not just a few. So this is the first phase of that. Here at Keystone Collab, this is our community center. We do 3 primary things here. We host collaborative innovation events like the one you're at now. We've hosted over 450 of these type of events in the last 2 years. Over 100 different organizations have used our space. It's also a public workspace. Folks can just drop in throughout the day, grab a table, use our Wi-Fi if you're in between meetings, whatever. So it's just a place for us to create those intersections and collisions. We are the home to 8 nonprofits and 6 startups that are all mission aligned, trying to build that community and build that density. That's part of our co-residency program. And then the third thing that we do here is this is our programming hub. So we offer an accelerator program for social entrepreneurs called the Social Venture Studio. We have a mentorship program, Keystone Mentors, where we can, if you're working on a startup, we can locate a mentor, an expert in whatever field that you're working on or looking for. And then we also have a program every Wednesday night, not to compete with the amazing work that this group does on Tuesdays, but every Wednesday night here from 4 to 8 o'clock we host Keystone Sessions. So we'll have different speakers, panels, fireside chats, all kinds of things at 5, 6, and 7 o'clock. Our goal is to merge industries, just create collisions in the innovation community on Wednesday nights. So join us for your happy hour. You don't have to be here for all 4 hours. You can just drop in, meet some people. Free food and beverage. We cater from a different place every Wednesday. Free beverages from the East Crossroads alcohol producers. So come join us for your happy hour on Wednesdays. Love to see you here. And thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks again, Kevin, for hosting. Favor to ask you if you could help us get the word out. So even though we have a large group tonight, not everyone knows what we're doing in Kansas City. And so we really encourage you to share your experiences here on social media. You can tag us. You can tag our LinkedIn profile as well as Facebook profile. We would really appreciate that. And with that being said, I am excited for tonight's panel discussion. I think you're in for a real treat. I'd like to introduce our moderator, Kelly Byrnes. Kelly is the president of Voyage Consulting as well as on our steering committee. And she's done a lot of work, and I think I'm really excited, so I will hand it over to Kelly to introduce the panels. Thank you. I guess you need the mic back.
I noticed free alcohol got a round of applause, but I didn't. Well, the AI is certainly revolutionizing all the industries out there, and architecture, engineering, and construction is part of that as well. So we are excited to have a panel. I'm going to do very brief introductions of these esteemed guests. So I encourage you to look at their LinkedIn, because if I really try to do a full presentation, bio, intro of all of them, it would take up more than half of our time. So very, very quickly. So we have Jeff Danley is here from Burns McDonnell. He's the Director of Innovation. Okay, when I first saw that for Jeff, I said, the Director of Innovation for a company that's how old? That's been around that long?
126 years.
126 years and that size all over the world? So that's a pretty big job. He's a visionary executive with 20 plus years at the intersection of technology and business. From the dot-com boom to AI, he's transformed industries and pioneered markets. As an entrepreneur and leader, he's scaled businesses, driven the digital transformations, and executed profitable exits, thriving on creativity and innovation. So we are excited to have you with us, Jeff. Thank you for joining us today. We also have Dustin Schafer here. Dustin is up next. He is the Chief Technical Officer for Henderson Engineering. So as the Chief Technical Officer, Dustin develops and directs the company's tech strategy, delivering innovative solutions for optimal return on investment of new tools and resources. He is key to driving the company's technical success in the areas of innovation, virtual design and construction, and sustainability. An industry veteran since 1999, and with Henderson for 16 years, Dustin previously served as Henderson's Sustainability Director and Engineering Director before his current tenure as CTO. So Dustin, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Peggy McGilley is next, and Peggy is recently, a week ago or so, celebrated your 7th anniversary with McCownGordon.
Well, yes.
So congratulations. And Peggy is the Director of the Business Solutions Group. And that was one of the titles I thought, wow, that could be other duties as assigned. Because that sounds pretty broad, doesn't it? So, and it is. An innovative leader focused on delivering the best client experience for internal and external customers. Peggy has extensive experience in development of strategic initiatives, organization optimization, and implementation of complex enterprise solutions that reduce costs, drive growth, and increase operational excellence. Peggy is also active in the organization, in her company, and helping develop others and supporting company initiatives. And she is a leader far beyond her years and her title. So thank you, Peggy, for joining us as well. And we are lucky to have Eddy Tavio with us. And Eddy is an architect, designer, technologist, and educator. He is a visionary architect with nearly 15 years of experience, leveraging the power of AI to redefine the practice of architecture and shape the future of cities. He's been featured in Sports Business Journal and the Venice Biennale Network. He pioneers the integration of AI to explore sustainability, craft new urban design strategies, and supercharge the creative process. So thank you, Eddy, for joining us as well. So isn't it interesting the overlap among, right? I really did cut all of that down because they're so impressive. It could have taken a lot longer. But the overlap among all of them, and did you recognize one word was probably used the most in all of those? Did you hear a word repeated? Innovation, right? Innovative, right? So we're lucky to have this innovative panel with us. Eddy, just coincidentally, I'm going to start with you because I read something today. This wasn't on our list of questions ahead of time, but I read today about, we're down and out here, let's see what it was called. The right conference. Let's see, the Open Computer Project Summit. Did you hear anything about that today? Or did anybody see articles that came out that Meta introduced some new hardware today at this conference? Oh, wow. Okay, see, I figured I better look up everything because I really do work in leadership and company culture. So I would be the one not to know. Well, Meta introduced a lot of things. What got my attention about it with the hardware is that to support all the innovation with AI, we need other systems to back that up, right? We need other hardware, so people are working on that as well. So I'm going to just invite you, and I'll start with Eddy, and we'll come down this way. And just if you want to share what's been the most significant impact that AI has had on your industry, what have you seen so far?
I'd love to answer that. Is the microphone
Is
working?
it?
I'm the only one whose microphone's a little bit off.
All right. Something the old-fashioned.
I get the big one. Okay. Yeah. Yes. You guys hear me okay? Is it better?
Oh, not
I'm like
yet.
the anti-microphone today. Look at that. Look at all the voices.
All right.
Better?
There
Okay,
we go.
good. There's been a lot. So how many of you, just from the first question back to you guys, how many of you are architects or work with architects?
I forgot to ask my audience questions.
Okay, so that's 1, 2, okay, 3 or so. Okay, so just to kind of give you a little bit of a brief overview about how it's impacted us. A lot of our work is visual, right? So we work in AutoCAD. That was the first kind of software that kind of came out. We worked in 2D line work. And then from AutoCAD, we transitioned to 3D. Most often that 3D transition is BIM, right? So BIM is Revit, you guys know about that. It's a big three-dimensional tool. There's all kinds of other tools out there. SketchUp, or heard about that, Rhino, 3ds Max, Maya. Coincidentally, all of our 3D software, all of it, has not been made by architects. We've actually taken our tools from animation and gaming industry. They're the ones that pioneered 3D, and it wasn't until avant-garde architects, like Tavio, for example, that took those tools like Rhino and 3ds Max and whatever else, and brought them into architecture to make our work visual and to actually add 3D to our work. Before it was just 2D plan drawings or 2D representations of buildings. So how we use AI now, how we're trying to, is to accelerate the creative process. When we envision a space, interior space, exterior building, whatever it may be, we use these 3D tools to basically model a digital twin, so to speak, of the idea. So we go to a client and we showcase a building or concept for space, whatever it is, with these tools. What AI has allowed us to do is multiply our creativity. I believe that AI gives us architects superpowers. So as opposed to us spending so much of our time modeling and detailing an idea all in fruition and then rendering it, no different than how you render a movie, Star Wars or Pixar movies, whatever those may be, they take computing power to render. So we use AI tools to make our modeling process faster and to be able to visualize these ideas much quicker. So in a week, before AI, our architecture team could actually model 1, 2, maybe 3 ideas, really thoughtful ideas, to be able to showcase the client and tell them which ones do you like. Right now, with the right process in place, the right tools in place, and the right people in that process in place, you could probably iterate through 100 different things in a single day. And so that's the difference, right? Is when you're able to iterate through 100 different things, you can now evaluate a much bigger range of ideas and then give your client much more fine-tuned solutions. You won't show them 100 things, but you would have explored 100 things in the same span of time, so your product is much better.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Eddy. And thanks for reminding me to ask the audience questions, because I forgot to ask. I wanted to let the panel get to know more about you for just a couple questions. So how many of you are in architecture? Eddy asked. Okay, not too many, just single digits, I think. How about in engineering? Okay, in construction? Anyone in all three? Or more than one of those? How many of you support one or all of those industries? All right, that's the bulk of our group here. How many of you would say how many of you are using AI now? Is anybody not? Anybody more AI curious? Okay. Expert to curious? And then how many of you have you learned anything about AI this week? And it's Tuesday. It just never stops the learning, right? Right when I think I know something, there's something else to do differently with it or add to it. So let's pick up with our questions, and let me ask, Peggy, I'll ask you and then the others. So the most significant impact that AI has had on construction in your industry?
I think for us, there's a lot of efficiency gains that we're learning. There's a lot of applications that already have built-in tools using AI that help our teams surface up information to them so they can make decisions faster and be more efficient and analyze things in a different way. We're able to forecast a bit differently now and hopefully have more leading indicators than lagging indicators and being able to action on those, which is fantastic. Not everything runs on budget or on schedule in construction, so we can have some insight into that. Helps reduce risk tremendously.
And that leads to less stress. And
Yes.
Probably better morale overall.
Yes.
All the good things to the people. Okay, thank you. Dustin, how about you? What are you seeing?
So I would say, as an industry, the best thing to come out of AI so far is that it scared executives. So I got a lot of opinions about things, a little bit sarcastic, but that's serious, that it unlocked capital to do all kinds of things around process automation and just things that aren't directly AI, but are affiliated with AI or like foundational to AI. It unlocked all the capital to start doing that because executives were like, well, what's an AI plan? And so I need to fund that because I don't want to get left behind. So we're doing some things like that are interesting use cases, but in general for the industry, that was the big unlock, because there's money to do things.
Yay, that's really good. Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Innovation, Director of Innovation. What have you seen as the most significant impact?
The most significant impact, if I'm being honest, for us is driving the demand for energy, which is really good for our business. But as far as internal, what we're seeing, I'd have to agree with the internal efficiencies. The ability to quickly and more efficiently evaluate alternative outcomes. I'll give you one example. We had a project that we had a large amount of steel that we had sent off to a shop to be fabricated, and then we received a message from that fabrication shop that they were overbooked and they were not going to be able to meet our needs. So that's bad for us because we've got a schedule with our clients to maintain, and when we don't meet that schedule, that gets really expensive. And we don't want to bear that expense, and we want to keep our clients happy. So we very quickly created an AI-powered application that helped us identify other fabrication shops and their capabilities and their capacity, and basically ran through a spreadsheet and split out how much of that steel we could send where and have it fabricated. And we actually ended up saving a significant amount of money in the fabrication for that project, and we were able to keep everything on schedule. So it's, case-by-case opportunities like that where we can very quickly get in and create applications that make the business run more efficient.
love that. One of my concerns is that people see it as a product, as a, we got to get AI, let's all get AI, let's get AI in here. And then they get AI and it does one thing, and then people forget about it. Like, I don't want to go through examples, but there have been millions of them over our careers, right? So I love that that's in the spur of the moment coming up with a solution and being creative and not just, well, we did that once.
It's where the innovation comes in.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
have to be able to think outside the box.
Exactly. Outside, beyond, over, under. So one of the questions that I had is thinking about how AI is used to improve decision making. And Peggy, you brought that up. How is it used for decision making? And I think that's where we have extra meetings because of getting input for decisions and get the input, get the information, then have another meeting. And then, so I think the lack of decision, the time it takes to make decisions is quite costly and can slow down a project. So what have you seen for the decision making?
I think there's just kind of piggybacking on the efficiency gains, just being able to get to the data faster and present it in a way that people can make decisions faster instead of spending hours and hours or days trying to get things from this application right up with this application and do this, being able to kind of get it all together and use your brain more than actually just clicking keys on a keyboard to try to get there is fantastic. We can make much smarter decisions and react, be more proactive than reactive. It's just presenting all the information in a different way and much faster.
Have your people adapted to this, the new types of presentations and the new, are they receiving that information well, or do they go through a learning curve with that?
As with any change, there's sort of this cycle of grief, if you will, in organizational change. So some people are early adopters and I need it and I'm just gonna figure it out. And then there's those that are scared. It's gonna completely change what I do. I don't know how to use this. How am I supposed to do my day job and learn something new? We've tried to help coach our teams that this is another tool in your tool belt. It's not gonna completely just change your life from you don't have a job. It's going to make you more productive, be more efficient, and be able to work with really smart people in this industry, allow them to use their brains rather than trying to find all the information.
I love that. Rather than doing the data entry, analyzing the data. Yeah, I love it. Dustin, do you want to?
So there's two parts of a business. There's running the business and then there's like the client-facing piece of the business. So most of our decision-making is more from AI on running the business side because that's where we have more structured data to start with. So we do a lot of proposals. We propose on work. We built a tool to predict will we win this proposal or not. Because when you're forecasting work, it's not very accurate to say we're 60% likely to win this job, so we're going to assign that 60% of the fee. If the fee is $20 million, that's a huge swing in work, right? So that's either 20 million or zero. So we wrote a tool to do that. We wrote a tool to predict how a project will bill, because it's very hard for us to predict cash flow. So if this is the fee, it's going to bill like this. We predict the duration, predict the time series, distribution of billing. And then we're working on one to predict spend, so we can do staffing projections. So those, to me, that's AI helping us make decisions. There's a lot of just data visualization and looking at things backward looking and see how we're doing, but those are forward-looking prediction.
I was going to chime in real quick on the topics come up a couple of times about AI helping make decisions. And that's an important topic that we tackled at Burns and Mac. So we've got an AI governance council that oversees all of our AI strategy, and we've got, we set our own guardrails. And one of the decisions that we made as a company was that we did not want AI to make decisions for us. AI will inform you as an employee and help you get to conclusions faster and probably provide more information that goes into that decision. But we don't want to implicitly trust the AI. Just, not yet. I haven't seen anything yet that makes me, want to implicitly trust the AI. So,
All in agreement? Yes. Right. Eddie, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think there's a great point, there's many great points being made. One of them is about unlocking capital. It's a fantastic point. I've had the fortune of working at big companies and small companies the past 15 years, and technology was always seen, at least in my experience, by management as somewhat optional, right? There are certain tools that are interesting, we should, spend money on some of those, right? But I think that because AI is such a big driving part of the conversation so far, it has unlocked quite a bit of capital. We have to react to this, all this money that was set aside for technology that was heavily scrutinized, now has basically been opened, and to create tools that are bespoke to the organization, be able to actually leverage all that capital to do some great work internally. So I appreciate AI, because even if the money is not actually used for a true AI application, there are so many things around AI that make it function correctly. Data structures, organizational items, management, sequences and whatnot, all those things put in place in order for you to leverage AI the correct way. And so before there wasn't this kind of catalyst to be able to do that, and now we have that as a way to unlock those funds. From a decision-making standpoint, I agree that, as architects, we're not going to relinquish the creative process to the machine. We're not trying to do that. What we are trying to do is co-pilot with this thing a little bit, so we can actually explore a lot more ideas and provide that much more value to clients. So coming to the table and saying, we explore 100 things, right, this week alone, and here's the best of those 3 things, provides a lot of value. We still make decisions, or we're able to make decisions with a lot more data and a lot more informed than we were before.
I want to ask you about one comment that I hear a lot is AI is taking everybody's jobs. So everyone's job is going to be replaced by AI. But I have a great example in architecture, because on Facebook, I see these posts about, here's a picture of my front of my house. Can anybody use one of those tools to tell me how I could paint it differently or change the shutters or add something to make it look nicer or to update it? And then people that I'm not positive, but I've creeped around and looked at profiles, especially in preparation of today. They are not architects, and they're throwing out ideas like they're experts, but they know how to use the tool. So we'll talk about all 3 of the fields, but in architecture, how do you answer that?
One thing that architects, I think, and I can attest to this myself too, is we are notorious for not being very good at communicating our value to clients and in the process, right? I think that because our field is uniquely in between the creative side and the science side, it's a little tough to bring the full value, but ultimately you have an architect that needs to sign legal documents to be able to build a project, right? So there's a safeguard there that AI can't, take that job per se, but at the same time, back to the point about will AI take my job, I think some of us have heard, many of you have, that's true. AI will not take your job, but I sincerely believe that somebody using it will. And I think for me that's come from a handful of folks on LinkedIn that are much more smart about it than I am, but that's where we're going. I agree that AI is a tool, but I also want to emphasize how big of a tool this is. Right? This is not just like a hammer or whatever it is. Like this is like the wheel, right? Like it's a foundational thing that is going to affect every industry at an incredibly high pace, and no one is safe from it. We're all going to evolve with it, and I'm personally excited for it, but it is going to shift and change every industry moving forward.
I appreciate that analogy of the toolbox, and you made me picture, if every job were a nail, then the only tool we need is a hammer. But we all have more tools than hammers, right? But you made me picture any of you have the big, huge red toolbox in your garage that's full of all the different types. Come on, I know some of you have that. I know what I'm talking about, right? So that's intimidating to me to think about. about that kind of thing. So anybody else want to chime in on, yeah, Jeff, go ahead.
One of the analogies I've made for some of our teams internally is that we shouldn't think of AI as replacing us. It will augment us. And, I think if you went back several decades before we had spreadsheets, and spreadsheets were introduced, and the accountants probably went nuts. They're like, oh my God, they don't need us anymore, right? Like, it's the computer's just going to add up all the numbers and move from one cell to another. And, I'm sure there's a lot of distrust in that, in that evolution as well. But I feel like that's where we're at with AI. It's going to be a tool that we'll all have across industries. This isn't like what spreadsheets did for accountants. It will impact everyone. We just have to figure out what are those opportunities to integrate it into our workflows.
I have two things. The Facebook house thing. My daughter would just go crazy with that. It would not be helpful, but it would be hilarious what she posted back. So that's what I thought.
Is there anyone from VML in the audience?
Any VML folks?
Because we built that at VML
Oh, really?
for a client. So LiDAR camera in the front of your iPhone will scan, take measurements, and tell you how much paint you can change colors. So anyway, we can talk later on that.
She would just troll you.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Like, I would recommend they paint their house pink and have purple shutters, or
It'd be awesome.
ads. Or I was thinking, you can come up with any kind of design, and yeah, that would look great. Add a 2-story and columns and redo your windows, but
Like
is
your
their
house has
budget
a cat.
$200,000, or is it $5,000 for paint? So
Yeah, so does it take your job, like specifically today, in the design meeting about the tool we're building, like we got to the point where we're like, well, this automates everything downstream of this step. So now instead of an engineer doing this step once, I need them to do it 7 times and look at the outputs. So it's not, like we're just doing more work, right? We're studying more things and putting more context to solutions. So it shouldn't, right? What it should do is make our product that much better than people who aren't using AI. So back to what Eddie said.
Okay, and that made me think of analysis paralysis. So just because you can add more things
Yeah.
to look at doesn't mean that you should every single time.
So I'm a huge nerd, but I have a really long answer to that. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. I won't bore you with the details, but like, that's the bad version of it. Yeah.
Something to guard against, right? It's just because we can look at it that way, or it's cool, or let me try this.
I think there's another way to look at it as well. I agree with what everybody said. Any of you heard that there's a labor shortage out there? So I think that embracing AI will help us with that. Whether that's augmenting different things on the job site. We could have some robots in the future like doing, there's bricklayers, there's Spot the Dog, there's other technologies that are out there. I think that I was talking to somebody about this earlier today, and even if you watched Elon's program that he had recently, these Optimus robots, they are so lifelike, and it totally makes me think, I don't know if you all are familiar with the Jetsons, but Rosie from the Jetsons is going to be a real thing in our lifetime, and could be very soon. That could help us offset some of what's going on with the labor shortage. We've got to get ready for that.
Totally agree. That's a great, fantastic point. I actually had an exhibit. It was on for a month long in Detroit. That's part of Bedrock, Detroit, which is a big development second in Detroit. And the exhibit was purely on the construction side, talking about how there's a heavy investment in drone construction and robotic arm construction. So what was mentioned, that's exactly on point. I mean, we're going to use AI to be able to use these technologies to build with these armatures. I mean, that's been around kind of for a little bit now, as a lot of behind-the-scenes technology and PhD research. But with AI, it's going to propel the industry forward. Not only that, but it's also going to, if you combine those technologies with AR technologies, you're able to teach a new workforce how to do new jobs and how to do certain things that they were not able to do before, or that took a lot longer for them to learn. than now. So I think it'll be a big positive impact on the construction side and alleviate, you know, Stuart mentioning the labor issues we have right now.
And then we were talking, where's Doug and Joe? We were talking beforehand about critical thinking, being an expert in what you do, and you still have to know stuff. Not, I can tell the people in here would know that, but make sure you tell the Gen Xers in the office coming, you know, that they still have to know stuff so they can evaluate and can help with judgment, if not decision making, with discernment. Can you share an example of a project that took on AI, or you did something different with AI, somehow it helped and it changed the outcome in a positive way? Or I guess it could have been in a negative way, but how you brought AI in and got the client on board, or something about that maybe was challenging, especially when it was new, but that AI made a difference in the outcome. Dustin, that's how you might do it.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, most of the things are proof of concept at this point. Where we have rolled those out into projects and they've worked, an example is we modularized ductwork and then created a tool to lay out ductwork automatically and like minimize the total length of duct. And then we sent our fabricators and got the duct made in chunks, shipped it to the site. And it was a building like this that they turned into an off clinic. You just put stuff up super fast. Worked great, and then no other projects were impressed enough to take it and keep going with it. So that's why I say there's a lot of proof of concept, like, yes, this is a good idea, but then it's crushed by the way the current workflow. So I'm of the opinion if you hear somebody and they're like, this has totally changed everything, they're telling you the most positive version of the story, because there's a lot of momentum that still has to be shifted. And so I try not to give overly optimistic answers. So there's glimmers of hope, and then there's a lot of momentum.
That's where I want to go next, so let me see if there's anybody else has an example of, Peggy, you want to chime in?
I can talk about an application that had we had it in place and it has, you know, AI built into it, we would have potentially had a different outcome on a project. So we had a project that, as things can happen on a construction project, they got turned upside down, and we use a tool called Smart PM that analyzes the schedules, and we ran the schedule for this project through the tool, and it would have informed us that things were going to potentially go upside down about 6 months earlier, and we would have been able to get ahead of it. And so that's one where we wish we would have had the tool. But we've learned from it, and now it's in place, and hopefully we won't have that happen again.
And there's still issues with construction and supply chain and all the things, but if you can know about it a little sooner, that does help.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So then the follow-up, which Dustin brought up, was, so I asked about the outcome, and then how have you all gone about convincing either, I guess you kind of brought up the executives, but the executives or clients or other teammates, how have you gone about convincing them to use AI for your work, or to, how do you influence them to get on board with it?
So I see Carly, we just had a company meeting, and I spent 15 minutes in that, like just on trying to build a shared vision around what's possible. Because I think most of the resistance is that people literally don't understand how the thing you're asking them to do fits into the next step, and the next step, and the next step. So I think the big culture shift comes from a shared understanding of what's possible. And the ChatGPT and other tools can help people see, like, oh wow, amazing things are possible. And what I'm not saying is like we literally can create magic, but I'm saying like if we do these steps, like this outcome could happen, right? So let's all just stop and think about what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, and ask questions and have a conversation about it and try to build a shared vision around where we're headed, instead of just me saying, you have to do this because I said so. Like that does not work. Absolutely not.
And when it's something that's a change that can be this major, you have to have those conversations more than one time.
Yeah, and you have to be direct. Like I said, if this doesn't sound like the kind of place you want to work, you should not work here. So what I'm not doing is saying I'm going to hold everyone's hand and be like infinitely patient, and you're going to refuse refuse to learn and I'm going to force you to learn. I'm just saying, this is the vision, and we need people here to want to do this. And if you don't, then like, go find a different place to work.
Yeah, nice.
I think I'll build on that. Just communicating the realm of possibilities and helping people understand what the technology can do. You have to start there. And from a construction perspective, I mean, the construction industry is known for being a laggard in terms of adopting technology. So, you know, you roll into a meeting and you start talking about all this AI and shiny objects, and, you know, people are quick to dismiss a lot of those ideas. Yeah, right. You know, then when you sit down and start talking about some of the mundane work that people have to do, like filing permits and tracking permits, and when you've got a 200-mile stretch of transmission lines that you have to get permits and, you know, land access and everything, nobody likes doing that, right? But if we can have a system that automates a lot of that work, then you get people's attention, right? And you know, bring them along for that journey and help educate them on here's what the technology can do, but then you've got to translate it into this is why I think you're going to like this, right? So, you know, that education and building, you know, we're building prototypes and demonstrating to our internal, we're selling to our internal teams the capabilities so that they can comprehend how it translates into value for their projects.
And you all have to do that too sometimes, right? Yeah, sell it to other people, sell it internally, sell it to clients.
At least in my experience, it's been a joy just demonstrating just the base level of these tools, right? Whether it's ChatGPT or Danley or Midjourney or Alcohol, whatever that you choose, being able to just pull up an example and then just ask any question or try to visualize any kind of idea and see the actual solution or the visual come up on screen really ignites, at least for architects, we're very creative people and we see possibilities. So just being able to actually visualize those things and then asking the question, okay, you can see what this tool is doing, whether it's ChatGPT or Midjourney or others, you can see what it's doing, and then you ask the question. At least what's been good for me is if you were building a practice from scratch today, what would you do differently? That's a different question than how do we integrate AI? And there's answers to that too, but at the very beginning, if you were to do from scratch, what kinds of issues are you running into right now? Forget design for a second. Forget having different house options or anything like that. If you put all the design conversations aside and you focus on business processes and where are the pain points right now, the technology is available right now to be able to design a new system, a new way of thinking, a new way of quickly addressing issues using AI as the foundation. So that's going to save people a lot of time and allow them to be more creative in their work. So at least for architects, we started by focusing on the design side. But there are so many other things that actually take up more of our time than design work does that can be streamlined quite heavily with these tools.
I saw an article about the Ritz-Carlton residences in Bayshore, and it talked about how AI is being used in construction to measure materials, the quantity of materials, and obviously that can affect the supply chain. And then it also is used as part of that whole project, telling them the number of people to hire. So how do you manage all of that, communicate all of that, manage that at the job site, and then add safety and safety elements on top of that? Peggy, do you have some ideas? That's a lot.
There's a lot going on at a job site. I think I can talk about the safety piece first. There's a lot of technology coming out. There's wearables, there's things in hard hats or in boots, and now other fixtures you can put down on your job site to really understand how, using computer vision, what's going on with our people. So over time, if you've got somebody going through a job site day after day after day, it starts to learn behaviors and can pick up impairment with someone, or if somebody's really tired, you can pick up some things that it would be, if we didn't notice those things, something could happen. And we always want everybody from the job site to go home safely every night to their families. There's other similar tools, there's sensors and things from a quality perspective to understand what's going on. If there, maybe we have some instability in the structure of some sort, helping the teams make sure that we've got all the structures in the right place so that everybody's safe. I think there's a lot of opportunity for project sites to leverage technology like this because there is so much going on the job site. In addition, there's, like you're talking about, improving processes. There's a lot of paperwork. So if we can automate some of those tasks and give the teams back that time, they may not feel so stretched where then they're stressed and something could happen on a job site because they're trying to get everything done. I think there's a lot of tools that, whether it's helping with safety of a person or helping offset other things that make a job site more safe, is incredible, and we should be leveraging it.
I mean, there's certainly safety, I do have one perspective on safety. Any safety, safety is our number one priority at Burns McDonnell. And so anytime there's any kind of safety incident or something at a job site, there's a tremendous amount of paperwork that gets captured. And, we obviously capture all that documentation and try to get better about safety and address that in any way that we can. But I believe that when I can start importing all of that safety incident information into a system and start looking at, I believe the system will start to identify characteristics of safety incidents, not just at one job site, but all the job sites, and then help us get more predictive about potential safety incidents. Using some of those characteristics that humans don't identify. It's easy for us to say, oh, it's wintertime and there's snow, so slips, trips, and falls are, a potential issue. We can start looking at, was this project ahead of schedule, behind schedule, which contractors were on site? There's so much data. There's not just the safety information, but there's all the project information and everything that surrounds that safety incident, and we can start to just get a lot smarter about safety. I think it's a tremendous opportunity across the entire industry.
And you can add, if they're wearing the hard hats and sensors and all that, you can add individual information and know by hours worked or on that site, new to the site or not. Add that later as well.
Yeah.
The possibilities are endless. I'm going to ask one more question and then open it up for questions. So if you have some questions for the group, we'll take them in a minute. Dustin, I'm coming to you. Dustin, you wrote on LinkedIn that automation is the catalyst, not the end point. And I hope that you can wring more, you said, I hope we can do more than wring another 2% out of our clients. So what do you envision is possible?
Yeah, so it's, that's a long answer. So automation gets a lot of press because people think, man, this thing I'm doing is boring. I wish I didn't do it. It would be cool if a machine did this for me. And then we justify that by saying, well, if you didn't have to do that thing, it would be this % more efficient, so I can actually calculate the return on that thing that I made, and we can justify why we did it. And I also put on LinkedIn that is like flipping coupons as a retirement strategy. Like, it's just, it doesn't get it done, right? And so justifying everything in terms of automation and ROI is way too small. But if you automate things, then it's not that you can do it once faster, you could do it 1,000,000 times in the amount of time it took you to do it once. So then you can optimize things and you can do it unlocks all this stuff because you have your processes automated. So it's the catalyst for real change, it's not real change. So that's the core of it. Don't stop there.
Don't stop. Anybody else want to chime in on the thought, the question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's multiple things. I think that there are so many projects that architects don't do, honestly, or they don't tackle. because the fees in there, because the process is in there, because it's just not profitable for us to do it, or there's no timeline for us to do it, right? So I think with automation and AI, it is the beginning of the process, not the end product. Because we're so much more efficient, I sincerely believe that if you're building a practice today, or in the future, that is based around AI, it is going to enable architects to tackle projects they couldn't tackle before for any number of reasons. In fact, to Jeff's point, I was making this point too, data is critical, and everything is data. And so what AI has allowed us to do is really understand that all of what we do, no matter what industry or whatever you're working on, you're working with data. And the better you are about structuring it, organizing it, and using it well, the better you can actually leverage your data to be able to build systems and AI agents that serve the way your company wants to do business. So being aware of that what you do on a daily basis, if done well, can actually help train and help advance your practice beyond what you did that day is a pretty amazing thing.
I love that. Think beyond, dream big,
It's super
possibility.
important to realize that we're not open AI scale. You know, like they lose $5 billion building those models. So everybody in this room, if you're going to do AI, it's old school AI. It's not, you're not hundreds of millions of dollars invested in training these things. So you have to have very discrete problems and very good data. You have to do that work. Until somebody else decides to invent a thing that we all use, you have to do it yourself in a very manual, structured way.
Are you inspired? Have you thought about actions you could take? Things that you want to look into? Anybody have questions for the board? Yeah.
Let me get a mic, and so that way everyone can hear us.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I was thinking, I got a friend of mine that sits on the board out of San Francisco that's doing HR, and what they're studying is the mood of the organization by checking Slack messages, emails, and things like that, so they can gauge, do we have an unhappy employee? And I remember my brother put GPSs on his trucks, and the guys were rebelling that now you're tracking where I'm going. And so now we're going to have, and I completely get safety. If we have someone debriefed on the job site, and if the boots are helping us understand they're staggering, well, that's going to save a lot. But is there any pushback from people feeling like Big Brother's watching them everywhere they go now? And how are they feeling about that? Because we're watching, they watch our keystrokes, we drive down the highway, we're seeing where we go now, but is there pushback among the employees going, this is really Big Brother?
There is. I've run into that on a couple of projects. For example, I wanted to create a specific computer vision application where on the front of some heavy equipment, I wanted a camera, and I wanted that camera to see what was happening in front of that piece of equipment. But there's also people in front of that piece of equipment. So we got a lot of pushback from the unions that they didn't want the cameras watching their crew. And I was having to plead my case that I don't care what your crew's doing in front of the camera. I'm looking at the objects that were moving and where are we placing them and which object went into which place. But I think that will probably continue to be a challenge until there's certain applications where we can justify it from a safety perspective. I think there's tremendous safety opportunities to leverage that same technology. My use case was, like I said, I wanted to see which widget went into which slot, and that didn't sit well with the other teams.
Yeah, there are some people that do feel that Big Brother is watching and you don't need to be in my sandbox, essentially. Right now, if there's something, because there's also different mechanisms that you can put on people's phones, we get a lot of pushback from that specifically. And right now it's kind of you can opt out for us. I think we could get there at some point. I think there's not going to be a choice that it's just everywhere and you can't opt out, and we just are going to have to wait for that point in time.
And focus on building trust in other ways.
Exactly.
It's happening everywhere. It's also, I mean, all of you have LinkedIn, I'm sure, or Instagram, at least one of those, or Facebook, whatever your platform is. Go to your settings right now if you haven't yet. LinkedIn last month, a few weeks ago, rolled out an auto opt-in. I can tell you about it, right? In the work we did, sort of. But they are using everything you post and your information to train their own models. So if you haven't gotten your settings yet and turned that off, that you auto opted in for, they're mining it. Your Instagram posts, all of that stuff, once you turn it off right now, it'd be mined. So you're gonna see that all the time. Every company understands now that attention and data are the biggest things that drive, spending. So anything that they can actually do to train their models based on your personal behaviors and data they're gonna do, unless you opt out of it.
I think there's part of this gets into a larger issue within the construction space specifically. If you look back over the past probably 30 or 40 years, productivity in virtually every industry has gone up, except for construction. Construction is down. And every other industry has been able to embrace technology. And there's a variety of reasons out on a construction site we can't embrace technology, whether it's the weather or something else. But there is this pushback from people, and if I had my dream state, I've talked to Lyle. Where's Lyle? So I've talked with a buddy of mine, Lyle, here in the audience, about being able to track things and people on a job site. And my dream state would be I would track the heavy equipment, the hand tools, the people, and even the raw materials. And doing that, I'm not so concerned with how much time Bob spends in the porta potty. I want to know how is everything moving around the job site, because when we can go in and optimize the layout of that site, we can get significantly more productive. We can increase safety probably. There's a lot of benefit to gain by just seeing how everything's moving around the job site. And I don't, this isn't a scientific guess, but it's my own personal guess that our construction project managers, the job they're on today is going to look very similar to the job that they're managing tomorrow, because they're successful, they've gone in and they know how they want their job site laid out, and they're going to lay out the next job site the same way they did this current job site, because it's what they're familiar with. It's not a data-driven decision. And when we can start tracking all the things on a job site and all the people, we can get much smarter and more efficient about how we lay out a job site.
And I'm going to push back a little bit, because even if they don't have data, they have their experience. And if they are experienced, some of them I've met, I think they'd have data or their experience would tie in with that data. So that counts for something. Okay, are there more questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you guys speak to your internal process of innovation and kind of going from ideation to implementation? And are you building, do you have a test environment set up? Are you going straight to chat? Do you have going straight to the model? Kind of talk through that process, and how are you getting stakeholder buy-in?
I can talk to that. So we have called the Think Tank, this idea management system. That's where people submit ideas for development. Honestly, the scale of what we're doing has kind of eclipsed the ability of people to have new ideas. So we look in there like, yeah, we got that idea. There's not a whole lot of new things. Most of them are around like you should use AI or something at this point. Okay, that's not actually a thing. So that exists, but we've kind of shifted into a build phase. So we're very strict around this is a proof of concept, this is an MVP, now we're launching a real product and rolling it out. Very strict around that. So we do have test environments, we have development environments, and then we have production environments, and then we push stuff to the live environment. We try to run it, like my team includes a software development team. We try to operate like software developers. So we don't encourage a lot of citizen development. What we are doing though is saying Dynamo exists in Revit. You can build tools there if you want. And then we're creating a Python environment and saying, you can build a tool for yourself in Python using these managed libraries in this managed environment. But you can't touch the database with your tool. You can't do big scale things. You can do individual scale things. That's the very short answer.
Do you have a follow-up? Looks like a lot's churning in your brain over there.
No, just that, so when, in the steel example, whenever you're trying to solve a problem, tell me about that process, or the ductwork example. How does that, whenever you have a tight turnaround?
So I run our innovation program, and we do have a structured innovation program where it's very focused on design thinking. So we want to identify the problem, right? And typically I'll run a workshop quarterly, and we'll choose a specific challenge that either we're facing or that the industry is facing, or in this case, this steel issue, right? And it's a pretty prescriptive process where I want to get 12 to 18 people in a room with very diverse perspectives on the project. Like, I don't want like all people from the field. I want some people from the field. I want some marketing. I want some finance and procurement, and get everyone together, and we'll have an ideation session, and we'll come out of that workshop with several hundred ideas. We'll prioritize those, and then we go back to our leadership team to discuss typically the top 3 or 5 concepts and decide which one of these do you have the most faith in, or which one do you want to build, right? So, and we'll go to a prototyping stage first and build a prototype to make sure that it's going to meet the needs out in the field. And once we validated that it meets our needs, then we move from prototype to MVP.
We have some more questions out here.
It seems to me that another wonderful technology ready to revolutionize your industries is VR and AR, augmented reality, virtual reality. Here, as of lately, we've seen AI and VR getting combined into the same type of devices. Meta, for example, is starting to get AI into the Quest headsets. What's your experience with this? Do you guys have anything? Where do you see all this going forward? Any experiences? Anything you guys are doing in this respect?
I wish I had a great AR or VR concept. My mic guy.
His battery might have died.
No, I was just saying I wish I had a great VR example for you. Am I back? We'll ditch that one. Okay, so we did have a use case for VR. This might not be as fantastical as what you might have in mind, but this was during COVID when we were not sending people all over the place, and at many of our sites, we do a reality capture scan of the job site. So we'll send out cameras that will do a 360 scan of the entire site. And in this particular instance, this was at a substation. And we had engineering work that we needed to continue to get done. And the way we got that done was through that reality capture scan, and our engineers in Kansas City could virtually go into that environment and take measurements and look at everything that they were performing engineering work on. So that's one example.
I've got one more for you. So this is a little backstory. This is Trimble. Trimble's a big corporation. They work in construction and surveying and whatnot. They're also the parent company of SketchUp, which is remodeling software. I'm telling you all that because there's 2 things they're working on right now. Well, one is already available. From an AR perspective, you can take your goggles or your iPad or any kind of lens and be able to see a project on site at true scale. Right? There's not AI yet, but it is VR. I want to get to the AR part in a minute. So again, whether there's a house or a substation or a big stadium project, you can actually visualize that building on that site by looking at it through a lens. Right? So that's already available as technology. How they're infusing AI into it now is, let's go into this room right now. You walk in and you want to 3D scan the room. Not only are you able to actually move your lenses or your iPad or whatever the machine is to be able to scan the room and get a 3D model of this space, be able to work in renovations or whatever it may be, but it's all the AI part of it is it now understands what is scanning. So as you look at a wall or a duct or whatever the equipment is that it's seeing, it is going to scan it, give you a 3D model of it. What it also knows, hey, I'm looking at a duct, I'm looking at this type of door, I'm looking at this type of equipment, and it's going to catalog that for you in the output. So that is brand new technology that they're able to work on right now, where it's able to, again, not just scan the room, but understand what it's actually looking at.
Thank you. Chris has another question.
It was running low on batteries. I can do Yeah, this one's dead.
We'll
The
take,
batteries on these don't last quite as long as they used to.
we'll take this question and then one more up here, and then we'll wrap it up, so there's plenty of time for you to network.
I do have one final question,
Oh,
so just
okay.
really quick.
Yes. I want to understand, we talked about AI a lot. So why do you take a decision on, okay, this is the process, we are going for AI automation. Why do you take that decision? What are the 3 top factors you consider? Do you look at the only budget, or you look at the adoption rate, or what exactly those key factors you consider when you go for the AI automation as a process you're picking up for any AI automation?
That's a great question. So like, how would you prioritize use cases one over the other? So it would be, for us, it's the scale. So if it's a difficult problem that one person has, they're probably going to have that problem for a while.
Yes.
But if it's like a difficult thing, like we do a lot of refrigeration system design, so it started with the refrigeration system tool because that's a huge part of our business. So if it's in a part of our business that is already big and moving, they get top priority over the smaller pieces just because that's where it dies in the back. And then if it's something that I can tie to optimization, I'm going to prioritize that over automation. And then I would say if it helped us with data governance, like if I can build a tool to make crappy data into good data just by getting people to use the tool, I would prioritize that one. You know, like if I can constrain the inputs so they can't type something in anymore, they have to pick from a list, that's like good.
So you look at the financial impact, and then you look at the data availability, and then prioritize, right?
Yeah, and I am probably an annoying peer in that I don't like to build ROIs for things. I like to say this has return. This part of our business is thriving and growing. So anything I can do in this part of our business to increase the value of our product, or hopefully the efficiency has ROI, so let's not talk about that. Like it's uninteresting to say is it 6 months or 8 or 12 or whatever. It's just enough. Let's do it.
I bet that wins you lots of friends in that space.
Luckily, that's
There's one more question over here.
We know that AI needs a lot of data, good data, for it to succeed. But even good data sometimes has biases that are not good. I work for healthcare, and I have to be very careful about those biases that come from good data, which are not really good biases. Does that happen in your industry, and if yes, how do you combat that? Removal of, try to remove the bias that you don't want it to be.
So I stay away from questions that are inherently biased, like who's a good performer. You know, like I would, like we're not going to ask that question because it's just going to say who got promoted. Like the answer to that could be super problematic. So we stay away from those kind of questions. And then on the design side, I think I might have just died. On the design side, I look for places where I can lean into bias that exists. So if there's a designer who's a good designer, I want to bias the tool towards whatever they're doing. So like, there's not a lot of problematic ductwork design happening, you know, but there is a lot of biased ductwork design. So what I want to do is make sure if we're training on something, I'm training on the right behavior, not just saying all behavior is behavior and I want to train on that. I want to exclude the bad things from it. And that you have to have a little bit of fairness in mind. You can't say I don't like this person. You have to say like they design expensive systems or they design energy efficient systems or whatever. Bias it around that on purpose. So, one is stay away from it, the other is look for places to introduce good bias.
All right, Chris, one more question, and then I have one more for the group, and we'll wrap it up.
The question is, AI takes a lot of power, right? And so we need to be building more power plants. And so are you having that dialogue internally as we're all using more AI? Where are we going to come up with the power? Well, explain. I mean, is that Evergy? Is that, how does that work?
It's, I mean, the demand, several of us were talking about this a little bit earlier, but the demands on the power grid in the United States today are tremendous, right? There's this, you know, this drive, no pun intended, but electrification of vehicles, right? So that's driven a lot of demand for power. How many electronic devices are you carrying right now, right? A lot. And when we start looking at the amount of power required for data centers, I mean, the hyperscalers have been building exponentially more data centers for several years now. And those plans were in place before a lot of this AI boom really occurred, right? So I can't even imagine, well, we're seeing it in the news. I think, you know, a week or two ago, we saw something about Microsoft, you know, starting up the 3 Mile Island. The nuclear part of that's decommissioned, right? But there are other power generation opportunities at that plant. So they're gonna fire that up. Google had an announcement today that they're gonna have nuclear powered facilities. So, you know, there's creating that power that we have to create new sources of power in this country, but all of the downstream impacts from that are also significant because we need a way to transmit that power from the power plant to wherever it's going, right? So there's going to be a tremendous amount of evolution of not just power generation in this country, but the distribution and the entire grid, which a lot of that work has been underway for quite some time, but I anticipate that's going to be accelerated pretty quickly.
I was reading an article about 1999 and how overbuilt the power generation infrastructure was because we were planning on big power consumption from the internet boom. So that could happen, right? Like maybe these use cases don't materialize and there's not enough revenue to support all the investment, and we go through this little dip for 5 to 10 years where power demand doesn't materialize and we have to figure out what to do with the infrastructure we're building. So it's either that or we can't build enough. And that's the situation that causes bubbles. And we're in one right now, right? Like this wrong, we can't build enough thing because that second case is scary enough. If we don't have enough power, we can't run all this, that's bad. But it's equally likely in my mind that we'll overbuild and then we'll have this big glut of power that we have to figure out what to do with.
I think that's what they were getting to that conversation today at that conference I mentioned earlier, talking about the hardware that's coming and all of that. Okay, one last question for the panel. And Alex Colley, I'm inspired by you from the question you always like to ask and think about is, if AI could do one thing for you, no matter what, just solve one problem, take care of one thing in your life, what do you wish it would do for you?
Oh man, I gotta go first with that. Yeah, does anyone else have an answer?
No loss.
I think about Rosie from the Jetsons. We could press a button and your sandwich would be there.
We need way better solar panels So if you could use AI to do some kind of material science, simulate all the possible combinations of all the possible molecules and come up with a better solar panel that could be built at scale, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think just, and maybe I struggle to answer this question because I'm already using it in this way, but just to drive innovation, right? And having that sounding board where I can ask it a question and get some feedback, right? And start doing some research. It enables me to go out and research topics in an instant that, it's so different from just doing a search of the internet to get some links back. It digests that information and gives it to me in a format that's easily digestible. So I don't know, that's how I'm already using it today, but I do see that whether someone's designing more efficient solar panels or, finding a cure for cancer, right? We will conquer these challenges with the assistance of this new technology.
I think it would be great if my weekly trip to the grocery store could just be taken care of, just from a selfish, simplistic perspective. Know what I need. Just say this is what I want to make this week, and all of it's done. It just magically appears. Could probably figure out trends and what I like to eat and when. That would be great. Yeah, fold laundry. Yeah.
That's what I
Take
was
care of
thinking
it for you. But for us at McCownGordon, I think really being able to provide solutions that help our teams do things better and provide the best building experiences would be amazing. Whatever that is, I don't know what the actual answer is, but continuing to do what we're doing.
This is like the far-fetched version, right? And there's all kinds of talks about this, but are we going to get to a point in the future in which each one of us has, no matter where you're on the planet, no matter where you live, no matter your background or upbringing, whatever it is, if everybody could have access to a decent and genuine life and be able to fend for themselves, and maybe as universal income or something along those lines, whatever these bigger concepts are, but is AI going to truly allow us to create a society where everybody is able to live their life to the fullest and have a meaningful impact and pursue their abilities and their artistic desires and emotions and pursuits and be able to really act as, I hope so, the great equalizer. Because again, the future is here, right? But it's very, it's not well distributed. It's very uneven distributed, right? So if AI could equalize all of that and really elevate everyone, I mean everyone up to a base level of comfort that we haven't been able to experience before, that would be a colossal win. And I think I hope that it enables us to do that.
That's a good one. On that note, how about a round of applause for our They take time out of their days and their evening to come and be with us, so we really do appreciate it. One of my main takeaways is, several of you talked about this, but Eddy, ending on such a big note is not to stop dreaming, to dream big. That one solution that you came up with that you worked so hard, that's not the end. Keep working, there's more ideas. That I asked at the beginning if you learned something already this week, and keep learning and keep dreaming big, because you're in on the ground floor of it all. So keep dreaming big, and that's where the big things, the big solutions will happen. So thank you all very much, and thank all of you for being part of tonight and for being in the Kansas City AI community. You will hear from our club and from Chris, and so we will keep in touch with you and look forward to you coming to another event. I sign off the AI roundtables by telling them to take care of themselves, take care of yourself and each other as you are being brilliant out there. So that's all I'll end this evening, and encourage you to continue networking, meet each other, come up and meet the panel, and we will see you again soon. Take care, everybody.